Welcome back to another Knoxcraft Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about my recent purchase. For those of you that seen the last video, we did a review on my Moto Guzzi VD5 TT. What I didn't tell anybody at the time was I had already arranged the trade-in for this bike. So here we are a month later, the trade's completed and I've traded in my adventure bike for this awesome 2012 Harley Davidson FXDF Fat Bob Dyna. I'm happy to talk to you guys about that today. And for those of you that have been kind of anticipating the next video, thank you for being patient. We've had some life changes and we're still going through a few more. They're good, I promise. One of them is that we picked up a new little puppy and we're just getting used to training her. So it's taken a bit of my time, but we'll hopefully be back with more review videos. So thank you very much for your guys' patience and hope you enjoy this one.
Oh my God.
And here we have the 2012 Harley Davidson FXDF Fat Bob main specifications. It has 1,688 cc or 103 cubic inch engine, rated at 66 horsepower and 81 foot-pounds of torque. It comes with a 6-speed manual, is belt driven with the primary that's chain driven between the engine and the transmission. A wet weight of 706 pounds or 305 kilograms, a fuel capacity of 5 gallons or 18.9 liters, a seat height of 26 inches or 663 millimeters. The engine is air-cooled with the overhead valve train assembly that's actuated using push rods. Cool, so the last time I talked to you guys, I had showcased my V85 TT, one that I had for quite a few years, and just around the same time of that video I was already working on a deal for this bad boy right here. It is a bit of a change up, and I know, going from an adventure bike to a cruiser probably doesn't make a lot of sense. You'd think that most people kind of stick just to cruisers, but I guess I was hit by the Harley bug, so here I am. This bike right behind me is kind of the inspiration for that. This is my so-called first Harley Davidson. It is a 2001 Electroglide. It has the twin cams, and I believe some of the upgrades included the big bore kit, so it's a 95. And when I bought it, it had some issues with the cam tensioners, which is quite common in the twin cams in this particular year. So we had swapped those out and replaced them, and that was kind of the first time I ever got to work on a big twin Harley. And I was quite impressed when I was taking it apart to see how they were constructed. So naturally it became obvious to get another Harley Davidson, this time fuel injected. So I opted for this 2012 FXDF, and at the time when we were doing the deal, I had the option between the two Fat Bobs. I went to one of my favorite local dealers, Mountainview Motorsports. Shout out to Tori, thank you for giving us a great deal. He let me test out two of these bikes. Now, I was a shout out between the modern FXDF, the Softail edition with the Milwaukee 8, and I also was able to try it out against this 2012 FXDF Dyna edition. To say the least, the Milwaukee 8s right off the factory floor are quiet. They're very efficient, very smooth. The bike that I was looking at had quite a few upgrades. Was looking for a bit of a fun bike. And you know, coming from a 2001 with a little bit more of a throaty action to it, more of a Harley grunt, if you will, I wanted to go back into that with a newer bike, something with fuel injection, but also didn't sacrifice some of the Harley characteristics that we know and love. So fast forward to today, I made a decision. I pulled the trigger on this 2012, and you know what? I couldn't be happier. Really impressed with the bike so far. The power delivery is awesome. It's a lot more oomph than a carbureted bike. I'm also pretty happy with it because it's just before they switched to the Milwaukee 8s. I'm not against the Milwaukee 8s per se, but I am a big fan of the 103s. I think they're a really good motor just before that. I like the twin cam technology, and again, I was kind of sticking to something that I knew how to repair before, so if I have any bumps along the way, I can mitigate those. So for the most part, this bike is relatively close to stock. It has regular handlebars, the regular risers. It's got the twin lights. It's got the stock rims. And from my understanding, I'm not quite sure if it's had any power delivery upgrades, but by the looks of it, it seems relatively tame. We won't really know until we start pulling things apart. But there are a few tasteful mods to this bike that, setup has appealed to me. Please keep in mind all these parts that I'll name off here did come with the bike, so kind of go to those in detail. So the saddlebags are in that beautiful brown leather. Really makes the denim black kind of stay sharp. Really like the look, almost like an old school traditional chopper-ish kind of appeal. And we also have a bit of a small tool bag. That was something that I actually had put on after purchasing the bike. A few of the other upgrades, the Vance & Hines dual exhaust. I also have the Roland Sands air intake kit, and it looks to be that the previous owner had upgraded the lights to a twin LED system for the fronts. And also, if you've noticed, it has a turn signal relocation kit. Typically these FXDFs have the turn signals on the handlebars, and it looks like the previous owner had relocated them back to the fork crowns, which is quite common with other Harleys like the Softails. So in terms of rideability, I'm super comfortable with the stance of this particular bike. Again, moving from bagger to more of a sport-like cruiser, I find it a lot easier to plant both feet on the ground. It doesn't seem like the seat width is that big. It's very easy for a short-ish rider like myself to, plant both feet on the ground and have full control of the bike at all times. One thing I will say, this bike has stock forward controls. Doesn't have the relocation kit. Sometimes if I'm not ready for it, it feels like a little bit of a reach. Again, I'm about 5'7", 5'8", and I have sometimes I feel like I'm on my tippy toes, but a little bit of a seat adjustment, and I have full plantability for both the brakes and the shifter. The bars I find are very good height. Again, I'm coming from dirt bikes and adventure bikes, so having bars a little bit closer for me, I find the most appealing. I know a few other people like to ride with 8 bars or, having larger risers, but I find for me anyways, I have that sense of control and I appreciate it, so probably won't be making any bar changes. I'm very content with the way that this bike has been constructed. That being said, I've also had the privilege of riding this to and from work quite a few times this last month, including taking it home the day that I bought it. The fuel tank seems pretty reasonable. I do notice it's a lot more thirsty than my adventure bike, but I could probably get on I'm trying to think, like 30-kilometer round trip, you could probably get 4 to 5 days out of a tank, give or take. It just depends how much warm-up time and how much traffic time and sitting in traffic there is, but I'm averaging, a reasonable consumption. I would probably put it, between 6 and 7 liters per 100K, maybe more. That's just a very rough estimate. My adventure bike was down to 5. So don't notice a huge difference, but you're going to be filling up at more places if you're going to take longer trips with this. One of the first things that I bought when I purchased the bike was a rain sock for the air intake. The cool thing about Harleys, they remind me of the hot rods of the day. They didn't care about air scoops and wide open, full power, as much as you can get sort of thing is the idea. So when you see these air intakes on the side, full without covers, just do what you can. I plan to use it as a commuter, so I wanted to have a backup strategy in case it rained. It's not so much of a problem for the falling rain, but more just the road rain and how much. And if you've ever hydro-locked an engine, you understand where I'm coming from with that statement. So we bought a rain cover for the air intake. Yet to try it out. I haven't had too many rainy days or getting caught in it, but it's there when I need it and I appreciate it, so we'll be testing that out hopefully. A couple other things. It's a very smooth ride. I don't know if it's quite nearly as smooth as, say, my baggers or any of like the more like modern bikes with like the more supple suspension or suspension upgrades, but it takes road bumps and whatnot pretty well. I've got a fairly rough commute. They're doing a lot of construction on the highway that I travel on every day, and it takes those holes and potholes and whatnot very well. Don't notice an abrupt difference. It doesn't shake me off my seat, if you will, so don't see any rideability issues from there. Other than that, it's been a pretty awesome bike. The power delivery is great. It's got a lot of oomph. You crack the throttle and it seems to want to go. I mean, that's the great thing about having these big Harley Davidson motors, is no shortage of power, no shortage of torque. A couple of other things that had to be done on the bike when they did the inspection. They did the typical fluid changes and checked it over, did some adjustments to the brakes, and also put on a new rear tire, which is perfect. So a little bit more comfort out of the longevity of it. So overall, what were the key differences between this bike and the Softail when I was testing them out? Again, it came down to the character. If you've ridden a Milwaukee 8 in stock form with full baffles, it doesn't necessarily feel like a Harley Davidson as much. It's quite quiet. It doesn't have that grunt. It just kind of rides like a normal bike, if you will. So I didn't necessarily like that. I did jump on this bike, and yes, it has the upgraded pipes, but it had a great noise to it. One that reminds me of my electric glide here. So and that's what I was kind of going for. The other thing about this setup that I liked as opposed to the other one was the larger tank and then the feeling. Now I am relatively short, and while I do acknowledge that the Softail version has closer forward controls, I did find it to be a little too close. I felt like, almost like the low riders, your knees are kind of up higher, and You know, you do have more control over your levers and whatnot, but I found it to be a little bit more uncomfortable. This one, you know, you get the full reach, and to sit there is kind of like sitting on the couch with the recliner up. So I kind of like that stance. Now, I mean, I could do relocation kit and get my feet a little bit closer, or the pegs a bit closer, but you know, for what it is, I enjoy it. I don't mind it, so just continue to run it like that. The other thing I did like about it too is the simplicity of it. You know, for a 2012, you know, there wasn't a lot of gadgets. It was cool though that, you know, the odometer has a few different modes. It tells you, you know, trip A, trip B. It tells you your gear and RPM still. It also tells you your distance to empty. All those things are kind of nice to know. I wasn't actually expecting that from a bike this old, but there it is, and I was happy with it. So I took advantage of it. I'm taking advantage of it. I use those features every day, especially the gears and RPMs. You're always gear hunting on the highway. You never know. It's always nice to kind of know where you're at. My old bike doesn't have the same features like that. It's really difficult to, you just got to go by feel for the gears, or remember what you did, or just keep tapping down until you get back to first gear. So that's something that's nice to know. And then the other thing too is the gas tank. Having, you know, a few more kilometers out of that gas tank makes a big difference, especially when you're commuting and you don't want to constantly be at the gas station to fuel up. So I do appreciate that with the bigger bike. But yeah, the overall having more analog gauges and things, kind of cool. Still has a few technology things, like I said. It has that odometer that has different settings, different readings. It also has a key fob, which a 2012 with a key fob is pretty cool. You get to jump on the bike, and you know, it's a little bit of an anti-theft device, so I like that. The other thing that came with the bike too was the fairing. In the photos I have it on the bike. I don't have it right now because I do like riding without it, but it came with the Batwing fairing. It's nice. I think my only complaint with that is the smoke windshield. Sometimes when it gets a little bit muddy, you know, it's hard to see out of there when you have your visor and you have your helmet, and then you also have this this windshield. So I might opt for like a more narrow design, like a Memphis Shades Dyna kind of look. So we'll see what that has to entail. But yeah, again, overall, I'm really happy with the bike. I really like the rideability. Definitely happy with, you know, going back to the Fat Bob. I like the bigger wheels and how stable it is on going down the roads and whatnot, and has the power to keep moving those wheels. So, and again, I do have a soft spot for, you know, the wider bikes, the breakouts, the Fat Bobs, the Fat Boys, and then baggers, obviously, with their wider wheels. Definitely like those style of bikes, but it's kind of cool to be with a Dyna platform here, having the two rear shocks, and you know, just looks iconic. I really love the look. So yeah, I'm again happy with the bike. Might be another long-term review coming up once I get a few more kilometers under it, but overall, yeah, I'm very happy with it, and it's a great bike. And if you guys need any Harley Davidsons, check out Mountainview Motorsports and Mountainview Harley Davidson in Chilliwack. They're usually my go-to, and this isn't a sponsored video by any means. It's just the guys have taken care of me for quite a number of years now, so just want to give a shout out to them and the great deal that we got for this. And yeah, thank you all, and hopefully we'll chat with you soon.